months now, Nosiviwe Mapisa-Nqakula has done what I think is the right thing, and she likely had no choice, did she? But what lesson should be learned from this? How many scandals trailed her all the way to the Speaker's office? I mean, how many of those who were implicated in the Zondo Commission are still in powerful positions? Are we going to be surprised by their next scandals? To get reaction now from opposition political parties, first up is Mzwanele Manyi from the Economic Freedom Fighters, a member of Parliament. Thank you for your time this morning. You would have known Nosiviwe Mapisa-Nqakula for a long time comrade of yours in politics. This is an unfortunate end to her political career, is it not?
Yeah, most definitely. I mean, she's an elderly person, a very decent person and all of that. For this to happen, actually, to be quite honest, is uncharacteristic of her as it were, as a person. But indeed, what we have now is a very dirty track record, even from days as a Minister of Defense. You would have thought that she wouldn't even qualify to be a speaker if you look at the things that she did even then. I mean, there's a whole list starting from the time when she gave the ANC lift to go to Zimbabwe on an army airplane. We have Colin Khosa's death, which I think is really on her hands, who during COVID, her soldiers went and killed this person there, and her response to this was not pleasing. Also, we had a situation where in Phoenix, people went on a rampage there with Uzis and everything. You would have thought that she would have unleashed the army to make sure that the people don't kill like flies in Phoenix. So already, indeed, her history hasn't been the pleasing one. Even as a speaker, her track record as a speaker is really disastrous. She presided over shielding Ramaphosa from Phala Phala. The whole secret ballot vote that would have happened, they would have dealt with Ramaphosa. She prevented that. She presided over the abuse of the parliamentarians who were trying to hold Ramaphosa accountable. She called police on them. People were totally abused in her presence and all of that.
Yeah.
She allowed, I mean, the list is long. So indeed, as the EFF, we welcome this development. And we think that she should have done this from day one instead of interfering with justice, because what she has done instead, she interfered with justice. For her to do all these shenanigans to try to avoid the arrest is actually interference with administration of justice.
Mzwanele, I must ask you, because one of the questions we are raising this morning is the lessons that can be learned from all of this. Is it time for our system to consider that perhaps the Speaker of the National Assembly should not come from the majority party in Parliament? Yeah, no, I think it's not a bad idea. Not only that, it doesn't matter where the Speaker comes from, but once elected, must resign her membership or his membership from whatever party in order to dispense neutrality. I mean, we've heard this, all the speakers in Parliament have basically been ANC speakers instead of being speakers of Parliament. They shield the ANC left, right, and center. So indeed, it only makes sense that the speaker becomes a neutral person, so that at least everybody can see that this person is administering the affairs of Parliament on a fair, objective, and equitable manner. What is happening now is really not acceptable. But let's not deviate from the situation here. The situation you have is the scandalous ANC leadership, is the ANC leadership that lacks ethics. Let's not forget that we've got Ramaphosa himself who must still answer for his Phala Phala. We're still waiting for the Hawks to issue a report, to give him a warning statement. We're still waiting on the Hawks to act on Ramaphosa, because we've got a wash of evidence with Ramaphosa, but nothing is happening on him. So indeed, this is a whole mess of ANC leadership. Here, I'm in the Eastern Cape right now. In the Eastern Cape here, we've got Mabuyane with a fake master's degree, who also went and interfered with the administration of justice. So we are led by thugs. And when we told them this in Parliament, they threw us out. So indeed, people of South Africa must understand that if they keep this ANC in power, they are keeping thugs in power. It's time to get the ANC out of the system, and let's usher in new energy. Let's usher in Malema to bring new change, and to make sure that South Africa is taken to the next level.
All right. Never want to waste an opportunity, Mzwanele Manyi from the Economic Freedom Fighters. Listening to that is perhaps a new face in politics, the leader of Rise Mzansi, Songezo Zibi, to weigh in on this. A very good morning to you, Songezo. Of course, it's a matter of hours, we understand. The former speaker now, Nosiviwe Mapisa-Nqakula, preparing to hand herself over for an arraignment. In that context, as you've heard, Mzwanele Manyi, there are still questions lingering over the president. The Deputy President, Paul Mashatile, himself has questions to answer to Parliament about his own ethics. I mean, what message does all of this send about how we view corruption as the society?
Good morning, Bongani, and thanks for having me on. I think the message that this sends to all of society is in line with our election slogan, which is we need new leaders. The three most powerful people in South African politics and in terms of our constitution is the president, the deputy president, and the speaker of parliament. Each of them in line for succession to the presidency, to the other two. In the case that the president is not able to take up the role of the deputy president. Now, when you have all three mired in corruption scandals in this way, it really is time to look for new leaders. But what this says is that this only happened, the resignation that is, because it is an election year and the election is only a few weeks away. Otherwise, the ANC wouldn't have done it. And I think it shows that the old political parties and their supporters have a very cavalier attitude towards corruption. And they're socializing society to see corruption as largely acceptable or something that people can do without consequence.
We're now expecting, of course, in a matter of hours, we understand, for the former speaker to hand herself over to police. This kind of thing in our politics, as you say, indicates a whole lot that is wrong with the rot of our political system. But many questions will linger about whether this was in fact the only contract in which this kind of thing happened, or whether there are other political principals who are involved in this kind of corruption.
Well, Bongani, I'm kudos to you for thinking that she'll hand herself over to the police today, because she's been doing that for 2 weeks now, at least according to newspaper reports. So we'll see when that happens. But I think what we need to take away from this, Bongani, is that the kind of changes that are needed in South Africa is not just a change of personnel at the union buildings or in parliament. It's fundamental changes to how our political accountability system works. It is the electoral system. It is government transparency. It is term limits. Because one of the reasons the speaker was able to do this, and other people are able to get into this kind of trouble or of serious allegations and potential charges, is that when you are in an institution for too long, it begins to form around you, around a certain group of people. And their whims become law within those institutions. That is why we need new leaders. We need political reform. We need changes to government and parliamentary regulations in order to fight corruption effectively.
Songezo Zibi, appreciate your time, the leader of Rise Mzansi. We started the week, of course, having a conversation with Siviwe Gwarube, who's the DA's parliamentary chief whip. Siviwe, a week is a long time in politics, as they say. You and I said if we get to a resignation, the motion of no confidence will be moot. But that's not all you were asking for as far as this individual is concerned.
Yes, good morning, Bongani, and good morning to your listeners. So, of course, we do welcome the resignation, and, I would have certainly preferred this to have happened 3 weeks ago, but the Speaker did dig in her heels, and it seems it was now the ANC that kind of, according to News 24, has indicated that they were unable to defend her in an election year. And so now we've had this resignation. And so, look, the motion of no confidence does fall away, and so does the ethics complaint that I laid against her regarding this very matter. However, Bongani, there is the powers and privileges complaint. I just want to quickly remind the listeners what that was about. that was about the dubious salary hike of the Secretary to Parliament of 70%, which both Ms. Mapisa-Nqakula and the chairperson of the NCOP, Mr. Masondo, had signed off. And so, upon reflection on the Act, it's clear that the Powers and Privileges Act does also apply to ordinary members of the public. And so, if she's found to have contravened that Act in the salary hike scandal, then she may be criminally liable and criminally charged in accordance to that Act. And so we do want to resolve that matter because, of course, Bongani, there are still people in Parliament, including the Secretary, who's now still earning this 5 million rand, which we don't know where it comes from. And so her resignation and her removal from the position doesn't mean that we need to now let these matters go. It's also especially important that the Act does now apply to her, even as an ordinary citizen.
Siviwe Gwarube, the DA's parliamentary chief whip there. Nosiviwe Mapisa-Nqakula has fallen on her sword. Is this to be welcomed, or are we once again praising fish?
Current events, developing stories,
tough questions,
your voice making a difference.
This is Breakfast with Bongani Bingwa.